Perfect. Well, welcome to another Wenalyze. Today I'm here with Tony Craddock, who's the Director General at the Payments Association. We're going to talk about what's happening in the payments industry. Tony, I know you have a wide view of the industry. So do you want to introduce yourself? Let us know who you are.
Brilliant. I'm the founder and director general of the Payments Association, and we're a community of around 250 organizations from across the payments value chain, from banks and fintechs to big techs to merchants. And the philosophy we have is that through coming together, we can better understand what on earth's going on in this extraordinarily complex, fast-moving, regulatory bound, but really exciting industry called payments. And that's my role, is really to be the voice of the industry and to try and make sense of what's actually happening.
Well, welcome to another. I think you're the perfect person to have this conversation. Today I'm here with Tony Craddock. We are the Director General at the Payments Association. One thing I realized, we're going to talk about there are what's happening in the payments industry, complexity. Tony, I know you have a wide view of the industry and processes. So do you want to introduce yourself as well? Who you are. Space is incredibly dynamic.
Brilliant. I'm the founder and director general of the Payments Association, and we're a community of around 250 organizations from across the payments value chain, from banks and fintechs to big techs to merchants. And the philosophy we have is that through coming together, we can better understand what on earth's going on in this extraordinarily complex, fast-moving, regulatory bound,
to the banks, slightly different to the fintechs,
and really exciting industry called payments.
Change with
my role is really to be the
complexity around
to be the voice of the industry and to try and make sense of what's
and
tribalism. So language, I can talk about one thing to you, and you might use one term for it, I might use a different term for it. And the tribal nature of this is that within each subsection or each silo within payments, of course, you've got different interpretations of the priorities of everything. So I'll first caveat my sense of my thoughts on Brilliant. I'm the founder and director general of the most relevant Payments Association, and we're a community of broader ones that I'll
around
share.
250
organizations from across the value chain, from banks and fintechs to
synthesis and analysis
to merchants.
Over 6,000 people who are registered
the
to
philosophy we have is going together, we can better understand what on earth's going on in the
trends that might be relevant earlier this year.
And so it should be pretty valid, albeit but really exciting things called payments going on. My role is really to be the complexity around, to be the voice of the industry and to try and make the first thing, of course, is language payments thing, which the UK has been deployed. You might use one term for it, I might but the thing that has changed in the last short period of time within each future silo within payments of jurisdictions have done different interpretations, and that opens up opportunities for caveat myself, which is supporting the second time, which is the revolution that had one general most relevant association, and we're around 250 organizations in a way that's value chains banks, synthesis and analysis to merchants, and also the philosophy we have in a way that understand what's going on in the trend as well, because be responsible as citizens for being accountable to so the real-time payments innovations have the first thing enables it. So language payments, so that's the first thing you might use. I think a big shift change in the industry's ability to and we're going to see this increasingly, ability to identify, prevent, and resolve financial crime, which of course means both fraud and money laundering. Interestingly, in most banks, these are in different departments, but the criminals don't really distinguish between the two. They are both means of illicitly obtaining reward for your illegal activities. And also the regulators have to some extent, of course, understand what's going on in the we're seeing, the third area and finance. This is where payments is embedded into the customer experience. So, the real-time I know that I'm paying a small amount of money, and I know few transformation, which pays my usage is being tracked by some. So that's the first thing you can allow I think, of course, we're going to see this increasingly on this ability to identify, prevent artificial intelligence, that is resolve omnipresent financial crime, which I hope to goodness means both fraud and money laundering. Interestingly, in most banks, for a few years, different departments, but the criminals don't really potential to be transformational. They are potentially very disruptive, illicitly obtaining reward for your illegal activities, payments, and or making the world a better place through payments, but not necessarily. And there's some ifs and buts in all that. The final thing just to touch on, of course, is regulatory change, both more and less regulation. Hopefully, we're going to be looking at culling some unuseful or poor regulations and replacing them with better ones, and the continuous bringing forth of new legislation to reflect the government's preferences is part of the climate in payments. It wouldn't be the payments industry if we didn't talk about the trends around regulation. But I'm confident that we'll be looking at less of the worst and more of the better regulation going forward.
Yeah, there's so many things to commend, but I was thinking, you mentioned fraud as one of the trends or one of the areas where banks are paying attention to. We've been doing a little test. We have a newsletter and we publish many articles on LinkedIn. And we've noticed that people show more interest when we talk about fraud than when we talk about anything else. And recently I was having a conversation with a former COO from HSBC. And I explained him. And recently I was having a conversation with our use cases, a former COO from HSBC. I explained to him, and recently I was having a conversation about use cases, a former COO from HSBC. Of course, you can talk about you improve the customer experience, or you provide data, or you cut operational costs. But if you have a way to reduce fraud, that is in top of their minds, and that's what they're paying more attention to.
And we'll talk about data in a minute, but that absolutely is the power of data, and the anything that reduces the pain of doing business is much easier to sell. Interestingly enough, than something that enhances the business's effectiveness. And I suppose that lends me to suggest that there's a couple of other trends bubbling under as well. We've talked a little bit about the customer and the customer's ability to use bank-to-bank payments or open banking, which would potentially, when it's enriched with data and insight on the back of that transaction, and can become open finance. It makes it, very much a trend that's to be watched out for. And let's not forget digital currencies, what used to be referred to as the crypto industry. It's interesting, isn't it? So the bit that used to be talked about called crypto isn't really called crypto anymore. We don't really use that term. So that's the other complication around language. Stuff goes out of date. You can't talk about prepaid anymore because nobody, it's account to account. It's account-based payments. It's just moved on, and you've got to keep ahead of the curve, but not too far ahead of the curve. Otherwise, nobody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened with blockchain, for example. We used to talk about blockchain every day, right? And it's still really interesting and necessary technology, but we just got bored from it. And now if you go to an event and someone says, well, we do blockchain, I'm like, your company must be like 7 years old. Like,
Yeah, exactly. You kind of put in your name on it. And if you called yourself crypto.com, then you probably got a bit of a problem. Actually, don't tell the people at crypto.com to listen to this webinar. That would not be fair.
I don't know anyone from crypto.com. I'm not a crypto bro myself, so I'm safe in that sense.
I think the other thing just to flag up, and by the way, we could do the whole webinar on trends. The other thing is identity. Initially, corporate identities, the Center for Innovation. So the Center for Innovation in Financial Technology, CFIT, run by Charlotte Crosswell and her team, has done really well at coming up with corporate identity frameworks that allow people to verify that the company is the company that they say they are, and that can then be adopted by consumers, and hopefully we'll get the gov.uk digital identity framework rolling out. So we're going to see this trend as well, and that's really important because you've got to have confidence that Roger is Roger, or that Roger is over 15, whatever it. Oh, I assume you're over 15. You'd be very hairy if you're not. Or you can just cut that bit out, Antonella, before I dig a deeper hole here. And so the ability to not only identify and verify people, but to have them authenticated is going to be really important as we go forward.
I'm amazed because every trend you mention, identity verification, cross-border payments, blockchain, if you go to an mention Pay360 verification, there are so many companies doing a similar thing. And coming from insurance, you could see maybe 2-3 competitors for every use case, business case, department, pain point. But in payments, if you don't see 10, you don't see any. There are so many doing the same.
Roger, it's a huge industry. The revenues in payments are $1.5 trillion a year. That's a lot of money, paying a lot of salaries of companies that are looking to solve problems. This is the world's biggest problem right now. It's a huge problem. We're talking about money. Talk about the thing that looking to solve treasure problems. More than the world's love. Often, it's more, and so the ability to move it between people in a way that's secure and instant and cheap and accountable is fundamental. And also, it's difficult to do it well. Look at a major retailer. I won't mention Marks and Spencer's name. It would be unfair, but. Look at Antonella's not got that joke yet. But they've just had 5 days of outage on their online website, and it's only because of the robustness of their brand and the quality of their products and their reputation that people are still confident that it's not going to be too damaging to them. There was 5 days of outage because of a cybersecurity leak or ransomware thing. It's extraordinary. And then you look at Portugal and Spain, and this is another trend that we haven't even researched this. The power outage. I mean, I know I can imagine power going out in Clapham, but Spain,
country, and 24 hours later, we still don't know.
Yeah,
what happened.
And look at the lines at the ATMs.
Yeah. So now cash became necessary again.
Yeah, I know. I'm rather dreading the journalist from the FT who says, are we looking for a re-establishment of the use of cash? And I will say yes, of course. So we're talking about digital cash here, digital cash.
So, we've mentioned a lot of trends, and I think before this trend, we used to talk about data all the time, right? We used to say data is the new oil, and data, machine learning, data analytics was a trend in itself. And I think nowadays is just a common practice. This is an industry where data is key. And I want to ask you, from your perspective, what type of data is key in the payments industry?
So, without wishing to be trite, good data and the right data is valuable. And good depends upon the use case. And so in some circumstances, data that's not 100% clean and accurate is acceptable. Other use cases, you simply can't have a dit or dot out of place. And then depending upon who the user is, what the cost of not having the right good data is, and other aspects will determine what sort of data is needed. Ultimately, we're looking at not just transactional data, we're looking at data that's enriched by behavioral overlays, a sense of the context and location, for example, of the customer, the stuff on their past usage, which is where open banking is so important. Account data can be extracted with somebody's permission and used as a way of either validating or...
Sorry, I think we lost you for a few seconds, but you can...
So transactional data enriched by behavioral and contextual insights is going to be very important. And where's it going to be used? It's going to be used everywhere. It's going to be used as a means of determining that I am who I say I am when I look at my phone here. That when I in time we're going to be looking at digitized passports as well. That's going to be exciting, and making sure that the way in which data is deployed is intelligent. And you guys at Wenalyze, you're the smart ones here. You're the ones who can help banks. You go deep into a bank and you work out what good and the right data is, and you'll help them to make sure they're moving it in the right way. It's not straightforward. I mean, thank goodness we've got companies like yours around.
Yeah, and I clearly know, what is the benefit between having a transaction that you look at a couple of days after you made it, and then you're like, what is this? I don't remember this business. I don't remember where I spent £150 on a Saturday, 3 a.m. morning, right?
Yeah.
So I clearly know the benefit of that type of data enrichment. Can you think about other benefits of data enrichment that you've seen?
So one of the things I'd love to see, and I think we need to talk a little bit about programmable payments. That hasn't come up as a trend, but the adoption of stable coins. And so what is programmable payments? Well, it's not programming the money per se. It's programming the journey the money takes. And I just love the idea of being able to know that when I'm sending money from one place to another, that I can follow distributed ledger technology. These are things that enable us to look at the provenance, the journey that a transaction has taken, and where the money came from in the first place. So when we talk about source of funds, we won't need to fill in bucket loads of forms and sign our life away and validate and come up with evidence that proves that the source of funds are legitimate, because there will be a token attached to the money which determines where it came from. And dirty money will be money that actually hasn't got the ability to prove its provenance. And will I be prepared to pay a little bit more, knowing that money is clean money, that I know that the right people have been involved with it through the transaction? Well, yes, I probably will. And there's great opportunities for organizations to come up with means of launching new products and services that allow programmable money to solve very real problems around risk and security and fraud and money laundering. And I'm very excited about seeing that in the future.
Really interesting. And Tony, you've seen a lot of, you're in touch with many companies, startups, banks. What is the most disruptive solution that you've seen lately? What is that idea, company tool that you've seen and you were like, wow, that's really going to make a change?
So it's really hard because there are so many, and we sometimes look for a big breakthrough innovation. Quite often, it's a series of iterative small innovations that make a company great. The one I know. Okay, so let me share a few that I think are fantastic. The way in which Revolut has been really committed to being customer centric and giving customers what they want without worrying too much, actually, on the journey about sticking to the letter and the word of the law, a degree of respect for them. And then I see established firms. I see some of the banks. I see some of the banks doing great work, whether it's Santander or NatWest, doing some great work, but in a way that's got different challenges because it's built on an old stack. It's built on 220 databases and multiple. So I think they can take as much credit as an organization that is perhaps newer on the block to be able to do innovative stuff. It's harder to do it from an established business, but when you do it, it can be a cracker. There's then little companies that are like one of our members is called Aryze, Aryze, and they're a Danish-based business, and they spent many years building a platform of DLT transaction management business. But they finally realized that something called they call it stable coins as a service is in big demand because they've got the tech upon which people can buy and sell and adapt and actually personalize, white label their own stable coins, and that's really clever, really, really clever. And so I like the sort of organizations like that. So there's established businesses like Klarna. They're not even one of our members. They probably should be. But they're ultimately a retail servicing business. But they raised a lot of money and they just used it to go and buy a dozen companies to make sure they had a rich portfolio. Not all of which will have worked, but it was just a really brave strategy and really smart one. They're not worth as much as they used to be, but that's many companies play that game.
Yeah, and really good branding as well. And they're in almost all the big merchants where I buy online. They're there as an option, and I think that kind of market penetration is, it's what makes them the leader in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's true. And then you've got organizations, retailers like ASOS, who was one of our members, and they do a great job at making sure that payments is embedded into the customer experience and is seamless and easy. Of course, there's a buy now, pay later people. I've mentioned Klarna, but there's many of those. The one thing I'd like to see more of is the adoption of digital identity. The wallet, the people who have adopted the wallet seamlessly and silently have been these guys. This is my iPhone. Actually, this is my wife, funnily enough. But that's how it goes. And the fact that I've just been to, where have I been this year? Rio, Dubai, Portugal and Spain, where the light stayed on, Canada, US. So I've done quite a lot of traveling, Madrid, done quite a lot of traveling. And this is all I use now. I still can have it in my pocket. I still have my wallet, but it's more because this is my magic here. It's my Oyster card, which you get when you're more than 60. And it's free travel after 9:30. Anybody out there on the brink of 60, stick with it. But the actual payment using my phone is so seamless and so easy. And I use one of my favorite products is the Curve card, which is a card-on-card, and it allows you to get international payments at a UK rate. It's very clever. But there's lots of these. But it's the adoption of the mobile wallet, which is the thing I'm most impressed by, and that's Apple spending years making sure they negotiate with the industry and then very subtly promoting it and making it impossible for people not to pay by phone.
Yeah, it's amazing how that technology has changed in the recent years. And I was talking to my CEO Carlos today, and we were mentioning how conversion rates, if you pay with pounds or you pay with euros, back in the day, it was something concerning because if you pay with a traditional bank, then they might charge you 20p, which is really high. But nowadays, all of them are very competitive, and there's not a big difference between American Express and Chase, for example, or other traditional banks. Like all of them have done a bit of homework in taking those commissions down. And I love seeing that the market understands that if you're not competitive, then you're out. And what that means for the end user is that life is easier for all of us, right? Thanks to this competition.
I think you're right, and that's the power of competition. So there are lots of companies in this space which does promote competition. Competition results in better quality products and services, more innovation, more problems being solved. So I'm a passionate believer in competition. And let me just share a scenario where there was no competition, and I didn't just spend my time walking the Canyon National Parks in the Midwest. I also dipped into Las Vegas, and I decided to get some cash out. The direct currency conversion option is always on there, and of course you never ever choose your local currency. You choose the company that you're in. We've all done this, but even with when choosing to not convert the currency, I was told that the FX would be 12%. So the FX split in a casino in Las Vegas is 12%. I mean, I know you're going to get stolen from in the casino by just playing the game, but you lost 12% before you even start. So don't go to the casino in Las Vegas. Take the cash with you to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Don't extract it from ATMs when you get there. Not a good idea.
That's true. That's true. I was in New York at the beginning of this month, and I did a cash withdrawal, and it was like, you have $2 commission. That's it. Like, you either accept it or not.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of homework to do there still. But if we go cashless, then that's not going to be a concern anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That is quite true. Yeah.
Well, Tony, thank you very much. I don't have any other question. I think I'm thinking that maybe we should do another one about the stable coins. It seems to be like another big world that is also a trend, and it's really, really interesting. I know very little, but this was really interesting. Thank you.
Good. I'm delighted. I'm happy to share my nuggets of insight for what they're worth, and I hope one or two people other than my wife listens to this. In fact, I'll be honest with you, she won't listen to it either. So I hope we've got a few people out there who do.
Someone will do. Someone will do for sure. If not your wife, then my girlfriend. That's fine.
Perfect. Very good. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Tony. Have a good one. Thank you.
All the best. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.